Hey, it's Denise. Um, it's, what is it? It's Monday morning. I was only up for just a few minutes so far. It's entirely too cold, so I immediately crawled back into bed. I did grab a yogurt. Um, I guess today what's on my mind is it's like yesterday Patrick and I started our, self quarantine. Neither of us are showing any symptoms. And that's the time to start quarantining, not when you're sick. I feel like because so far testing is really only being made available to people who are already obviously ill with something. It doesn't necessarily mean they have COVID-19, but they basically have to be showing like at least flu-like symptoms and, in order to be tested. And of course, hopefully by now everyone understands that by that point, you've already been spreading it around for 2 weeks because it's contagious for about 2 weeks before you start to feel sick. Kind of like chickenpox. It's why they spread so easily. You don't realize you're spreading them. So I do think the responsible thing for everyone who possibly can, and I understand there are people who can't, I think the responsible thing to do is to self-quarantine, even if you feel fine. And right now, like to me, it's a countdown. I'm waiting these 2 weeks to see if I become symptomatic and, praying that I don't. I'm, you know, I'm 51 years old and I have pretty severe underlying asthma. So the regular flu can kill someone with asthma. This would definitely be a life-threatening thing for me. So like I said, sitting here with fingers crossed for the next 2 weeks, hoping that neither me or my son show any symptoms. And then it's at that point I feel like, we can breathe a little, like knowing hopefully we don't have it. And then it's a matter of keeping it that way. So, as you may or may not know, depending on if you've watched my prior videos, if you haven't, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and don't forget to like. But after that shameless plugging of my channel, which I really am trying to grow, so I do appreciate your taking the time to watch. I have done just really, like, I would consider myself like a sort of baby at the prepper thing. I just really started maybe 2 years ago making my first purchases of a little bit, and I'm talking like small amounts of long-term storage food, just in the event of, whatever, and even just up till before this virus really became the issue that, of course, we now know how big it is. Before we were even really talking about it, I had done a video where, I kind of jokingly said you can say you're preparing for whatever it is. I joke that for me, that it's the zombie apocalypse. Because to me, it was just, I've just had this sense of you need to be ready. And I can't really, some of you are going to say, okay, now Denise is a certified wackadoodle. And okay, never been certified. Not denying the wackadoodle part. But, just, I've been just in the most general, basic ways that everyone can, especially, like I have done a video on starting to prep, on a budget for people who, like myself, have not the greatest income, but want to be ready for emergencies. And that was so before I don't have cable TV, because that doesn't fit in my budget. So I was kind of slow on the uptake too, as far as, a couple months ago when they first were talking about what was going on in China with the virus, I was not one of those first people out there immediately like, oh my God, we have to react to this. Like, I didn't even know about it till I talked to my mother and she mentioned it because she obsessively watches the news like 2 or 3 times a night. But yeah, it's, really only something that's really been on my radar for, it's like seriously on my radar for a month. And so my prepping wasn't for this particular event. Yeah, this is where the wackadoodle part comes in. I started 3 or 4 months ago just having what I consider intuition, and just sort of intuitive thoughts, stuff that kind of comes to you out of nowhere. I kept having the thought, you need to be ready. You need to be ready for what's happening. And just like in a very vague way, I kept finding myself thinking that. And, then it's like you have to make the decision of, are you going to allot some of your limited resources as far as your income to prepping type supplies and long-term storage food and bottled water and, stuff that you could say, well, that's not something you have to have. Unless it then turns out you're stuck in your house for a month. Under ordinary circumstances, yeah, you probably don't have to have that. Although, and again, I'm talking before we all realized that we might be having to spend a lot of time in our houses. I firmly believed that you should be prepared for any reason. And, like I said in those videos, whatever your version of the emergency was, whether it was civil unrest, natural, it's early. It's early and I'm trying to talk. Natural disaster of some kind, prolonged power outage, loss of income, whatever it might be. I, certainly did not start prepping with this virus in mind. But, so yesterday was Sunday. Saturday, we got the automated phone call that our school district was closed. They're saying for a month. But in reality, this isn't me saying the sky is falling. The CDC is telling everyone this is going to get way worse before it gets better, especially if people don't do the socially responsible thing and self-quarantine and practice social distancing. So people up here have been pretty chill. There was still toilet paper. People weren't filling up their carts with it. But I kind of had a feeling once the schools closed that people might start to behave differently, because that kind of makes it more like, wow, it's happening here. Which so far there wasn't really any sense of anxiety or, that where we are, was a particularly, high risk area. I do live, again, if you're new, I live in very northern upstate New York, closer to Montreal than Manhattan. So, and I live in the sticks. It's not like I live in a big city up here or anything. I live in a very small, very rural town. And this area is very much a summer tourist economy area. So this is not a well-to-do area financially. In fact, it's a pretty poor area. And yet, one thing I've learned is that this virus is showing us people's true colors, just like any emergency will, or any hard times will. when my house burned down in 2012, complete strangers went so out of their way to help me. As far as, like, I didn't even get to meet them and thank them. So many people just would drop bags of things at my door of the apartment. And it was an awful apartment. It was the first place I could find to rent. So luckily we were only there for about 6 weeks, but the first few days I spent on my neighbor's couch. The neighbor of what was now my burned to the ground house, and Bev, who I will never forget her kindness. We did not know each other well. That had just been a summer house for us, and calling it a house makes it sound far grander than it was. It was essentially like a 1-bedroom apartment, but its own house, you know, and it was old. The only, source of heat was a wood stove, which is great for coming up in the summer or, maybe spring or fall, but not someplace we ever used in the winter. Simply because it was too freaking cold. I mean, like I said, we're at the very sort of northern part of New York State. And yet up here in a community where people have so little, they are so much more generous and so much more giving. And I thought about that. I was like, I grew up in a more affluent area. I spent most of my adult life until my spinal cord injury ended my career, and I went from making really good money to being a single parent trying to make it on disability. And there you have it now. I'm living in a place where, for me, because I am now, after 26 years of being a nurse, if you have no balance and no strength, and at my age, they decided that I was not someone that they would recommend trying to retrain for another career. So, and I never know, with the health problems that I have, there are days where I'm just going to wake up and I can't move for the first few hours. Like, I have a lot of body pain. Anyway, getting a little off topic, but my point is, I can live here because my income isn't dependent upon year-round employment at this point. Any employment for that matter. I did attempt to start a company. I make, not to toot my own horn, but I make pretty awesome, from scratch, best ingredients, soaps and lotions and things. So I had started a company and was just in a place like this. Luxury items don't sell. People are going to buy that $1 bar of soap full of chemicals made in China. At the dollar store, they're not going to buy a $4 or $5 bar of soap that's made with, only the good stuff that needs to be in soap, plus some extra good stuff to benefit your skin. Right now, I can tell you, even though it failed as a business, I'm really glad, because while hand sanitizer is great, CDC keeps telling everybody, and healthcare professionals will tell you the same thing, washing your hands with soap and water is still the most effective way of practicing good hand hygiene. And I've got enough soap for 3 lifetimes. That's because I made it myself, not because I went and wiped out a store shelf. What else? Excuse me while I get comfortable. The price gouging, I have to say, it makes me sick that people do that. I mean, if you found a treasure at a yard sale, hey, yeah, go ahead, go on eBay, make as much profit as you can off it, go for it. But to go into stores and clear the shelves of items that people need for a pandemic, where having or not having these items could be literally a matter of life and death, to go clear them out at a dollar store and then sell them for $50 a piece on eBay, I think makes you a despicable human being. And people can say, oh, it's a market, open market economy and supply and demand, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand how the economy works. I'm 51. But I also understand greed and a lack of concern for your fellow human being. And that's what you're displaying if you're one of those people who are buying up stuff, not just because you want to make sure you have enough for your family for, what may be a long haul, but people who are buying it to sell it. That's kind of what is making me think a little less of some of my fellow human beings right now. Because normally I am someone who I see the good in people. It's my nature to look for the good in people. And I think so far, at least up here, it's like people have been relaxed. Maybe buying a little bit extra, some extra canned goods, some extra bottled water, because if our power goes out, we're not there's no municipal water here. If our power goes out, that means your water pump to your well goes out, and therefore no water floweth from the faucet. And at times, more importantly, the toilet doesn't flush. So, it makes sense if you live somewhere where there's no the speaking today. If I could edit, I wouldn't make you listen to it. But yeah, so if you're somewhere with no municipal, why can't I say that word today? It's not a hard word. Well, you don't have town water. How do you like that? It does make sense to keep some drinking water in the house. And I always, just as a matter of habit, have 2 buckets of water that I'll periodically have my son just dump them and refill them, because they'll start getting, like a film on the top if you let them sit like for a month. But I always have 2 buckets of water, not the most attractive decor off to the sort of side as you walk into the bathroom. But if the power goes out unexpectedly, at least you have a few flushes worth of water. If you've ever been stuck somewhere where you can't flush the toilet for a prolonged period of time, you only have to have that happen once before you then realize it's a good idea to be prepared for that. And you certainly don't want to waste your drinking water for that. I'm just hoping that, like I said, first of all, I'm hoping to get through the next 2 weeks or so, and hoping that neither of us have been exposed and are sick, because we should know within 2 weeks. We, would start showing symptoms, I would think. Although I think they've said that I think 20 days now is what I've heard is the longest incubation period that they've seen before someone's, between exposure and symptoms, which is scary because now you're pushing it to closer to 3 weeks. But at any rate, I figure if I was going to have been exposed, it would probably have been, and this is not to say that I wasn't around any sick people. People think that, but when you're most likely to catch it is during that 2-week period when the person doesn't know they're sick. So they're still out there walking around in public, not because they don't know that they're spreading it. That's why I think, and I'm asking you, if you can influence your friends, family to do the both personally and socially responsible thing, if they are able to stay home, stay home. Obviously, if you have to go to work, if your employment is of a type that, you can't do some of your work from home, or, some people are getting even, either using vacation time if they have it, or they're, some people have even been laid off because their companies have decided to close, the businesses that they work for. And if it's a smaller company, they can't afford to keep paying people while they're closed. So I understand that some people do have to physically go to work, but I'm thinking about people who are choosing to go to restaurants and go to stores, not just to go in there and quickly get what they need, but like my older son, his friends were talking about still like, oh, we're going to go out and go to the arcade. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, you're 22 with no underlying health issues. It probably won't kill you if you catch it. My mother is in her 70s with underlying health issues. It could kill her. So you can't go out to these places, possibly pick it up, and then go home to your loved ones. Whether they're, babies or the elderly, or it's just someone with, like myself, who I don't, I don't, I don't qualify as elderly quite yet at 51, but I do have asthma, so it would be a very, very bad thing for me to get a strong respiratory virus. So I think people need to stop thinking of themselves, like, oh, I'm bored, I don't want to sit in the house. Well, too bad. Do you care about other people? Do you care about helping the country get this virus under control as fast as we can, so that we can all get back to our normal lives? Because as long as people keep casually, getting together and spreading it around, there's not going to be any containment, because we're not testing healthy people. I should say healthy appearing people. So I am asking people to please take the sort of self-quarantine and social distancing thing seriously. And, there are people who have all different reasons for why they're not doing it. Some, like I said, are valid. They have employment. It's, they're police officers, doctors, nurses, caretakers of people who are dependent on them. So they really do need to go to work. But other than that, people shouldn't be socially hanging out in public places. If people have stopped going to church, and, I'm talking people who would normally not miss a week, because they realize it's the smart thing to do, not just for them, but for their whole congregation. If they can do that, then it will not kill you not to go out and eat in a restaurant or a coffee shop or play games at some arcade. It won't kill you to give those things up for a little while. And if everyone would do that, again, this would slow down the spread greatly, and it will save lives. So, I guess I feel like I'm waving my yogurt at you to make a point. It's not a good pointer. Definitely, you could wave something. It should at least be pointy. I don't know. But so the price gouging and the people who just flat out are like, oh, I'm bored, so I have to go to some potentially crowded public place where everybody, again, we're dealing with a virus that can live for up to 9 days on surfaces. So it might not be crowded in the arcade now, but if it was last night, do you think they've sanitized everything in there? I'm not counting on the fact that they have. So everything you touch could be covered in it. There's no reason to be at recreational places. This is why they've closed, down a lot of recreational venues. I'm sure my 17-year-old son could think of things he'd rather do for a month than sit home with his mother. Personally, as a mother, your teenagers don't talk to you half enough, I don't think. And I love mine dearly. I love my 22-year-old dearly as well. He's with my mother. And I just talked to her last night. They're kind of finally getting the idea that they need to take this seriously, because honestly, I don't think they have been. I think they're a little behind the 8 ball in terms of taking this seriously. Now my mother, who, it's funny because she calls me a hoarder, because, I mean, I'm messy. I will never deny that it is. I have too much stuff. Am I hoarding like every newspaper since the day I was born? No, not that kind of stuff. Just like, stuff like, oh, probably I could go through my clothes, especially since I've lost like 110 pounds. I could go through my clothes and get rid of even more of them. And I've gotten rid of a good amount. Probably maybe 2 months ago or so, when I thought I was done losing, and then I ended up losing like more than 2 months ago. A few months ago, I should say, when I thought I was going to be done losing, and then I ended up losing another 15 pounds or so. So I do have some more clothes that don't fit. But I'll get around to that. I'm not doing it right now. I mean, I'm also recovering from surgery. I had 2 abdominal surgeries, and then while I was recovering from the abdominal surgery is when my retina detached, and then I ended up having 2 emergency eye surgeries within a week. And so now I'm recovering from both abdominal and eye surgery, both of which you're not allowed to lift. And they don't mean just you're not allowed to lift heavy. Like, I'm not even supposed to be carrying like a pocketbook or purse. Because I have a ton of internal, like, there's no incision line here on the outside, but on the inside there's tons of internal suturing and tight suturing, because that's where the diastasis recti, the separated muscles from when I was pregnant, was repaired while they were in there doing my loose skin removal surgery. Being that they have you basically cut in half, it's a good time if you have a hernia or any other type of thing that needs repairing on the wall of your abdominal muscles. They have access to it anyway without making an additional incision. So my surgeon repaired that. That's the part for me that is hurting, and is hot. I mean, so it's obviously still like kind of swollen, kind of inflamed. My insides have not gotten over it yet. Certainly, it's been, let's see, been about 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks since my surgery was done. So it's going to take a while, and it's 2 full months before I'm supposed to be lifting anything. And again, after having a retina detach, for no reason, there was no head injury or eye injury or anything. It just happened, which is how it happens to a lot of people, apparently. Sometimes they know why it happens, and sometimes they don't. So it's driving me nuts that I can't be doing more organizing and cleaning, because you feel like I'm stuck in the house for 2 months. This would be like perfect. You can't go anywhere and do anything anyway. Get back to that organizing and cleaning. My son carried after we did our shopping yesterday, and then declared ourselves like, get what you need, because this is it. We're starting our stay at home as of now. And so we did that yesterday, and now I'm sore. And he did the heavy lifting of the bags, but even just once I got home, trying to like put stuff away, canned stuff, or got a couple bags of like rice and beans, other things that'll store a long time. And while I am supposed to be eating high protein, low carb, those are not your, shelf stable. I mean, you could live on canned tuna if you could eat fish, but I'm allergic to shellfish and fish. As I say, both fish and fish. But, Also because of my surgery, my weight loss surgery, I don't really have an easy time digesting meat. I haven't since the surgery. So generally, I get my protein from protein shakes and yogurt, and then I nibble on other stuff. And my vitamins, I wear a vitamin patch. That's something that I'm going to need to do for forever. Kind of one of the things that you accept as reality if you're when you make the decision to have weight loss surgery. What else? I guess just I hope everyone is following the CDC guidelines. Stay home, people. Stay home. Stay home. Only go out if you really have to, and wash your hands with soap and water. And, just don't panic. And if you know you have an elderly neighbor or someone, you can ask them, through the door how they're doing, make sure they're okay, but don't walk in where if you might not have it and not realize it, you don't want to be the one who spreads it to them. It's good to check on people. It's not good to give them contagious diseases. Sometimes our best intentions can lead to disastrous results. So just keep in mind not going where someone elderly or with a chronic illness might be, I'm sorry, just a little distraction there, where they might be exposed to you or anything you touch. This is why nursing homes have stopped allowing visitors. So be safe, be smart, don't panic, but follow the guidelines, follow the precautions, and let's all of us get through this with as few fatalities as possible, which we can only accomplish if we help contain it as quickly as possible. And going out unnecessarily and mingling with people who can then bring it from you to their house or vice versa, you bringing it home with you from their house. We need to stop doing that for the time being. I know by nature, most of us, not all of us, most of us are at least somewhat social creatures. But do that socializing, on the phone or Skyping or through whatever, online game you and your friends play, or there's a million other ways to be in touch without physically going to see the person. And right now, that's kind of what we have to do. It may not be the most exciting couple months any of us have, but if it gets this thing to start slowing down in a couple months as opposed to a year or two, which is what they were looking at, if we don't stop doing what we're doing, of just, ignoring it, which basically, yeah, I'm going to piss some people off, but yeah, our government's incredibly slow response has put us so far behind the eight ball that there are no doubt many, many, many infected people out there right now who don't know it and are going to be figuring it out over the next few weeks. And the hospitals, the CDC is already saying they're concerned our hospitals are not going to be able to handle when people start getting sick over the next couple weeks. They're concerned that our healthcare system is not going to be able to handle the number of people. I, like I said, I'm home where it's not so crowded. It's rural. Not really, many reasons to be anywhere crowded. But, yeah, I did have to spend the time while I was sick kind of near. I was in a county where they have one of the worst, a city within that county was one of the first places that the National Guard got called into because it was getting so bad. And again, it's like, well, I wasn't near anyone sick. That's to say I wasn't near anyone who was visibly showing symptoms. For all I know, they could have been carrying it. So the time that I had to spend there, but again, no option. Go blind in your left eye or go let these people do what they need to do. And the retina specialist that did my surgery is in Westchester. So obviously I was like, I was a little on the paranoid side. I was, like dousing my hands and stuff in hand sanitizer every time I so much as looked at someone. But, you know, I'm hoping I didn't pick anything up. And like I said, just waiting it out now at home, because if I did pick it up, I don't want to be spreading it to people. And I think we all need to not be selfish. Don't, yes, you don't want to catch it yourself or for you or your family, but don't be selfish. You don't want to give it to other people if you have picked it up and you just don't realize it yet. So if everyone would do what we're supposed to do, hey, binge watch some shows you'd never heard of, or maybe watched a long time ago and would enjoy watching again, or binge watch on YouTube your favorite channels. And, let's all try to get through this with our sanity and our sense of humor and our health intact. Have a great day, and stop price gouging. When I've seen the price changes on some items that I've bought in the last couple months, that the prices have more than doubled, it's like, to me, I know people have to make money, but it shouldn't be at the expense of people's lives. And on that thought, be good to people, help when you can, and sometimes the best thing we can do to help is just to stay home. I wish you an interesting and healthy self-imposed quarantine, and hopefully you find a way to keep yourself in touch with the people you want to be in touch with while also maintaining social distancing. I'm done being preachy and letting you know how we've been preparing, and I hope you're prepared and don't have to go out much. And if you do, just remember, soap and water, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and disinfect things when you bring them into your house to try to keep your house a healthy place. Take care, and I'll see you soon.